right, guys, welcome to the Big Hunt Guys podcast. This is a additional episode, so we're dropping 2 episodes this week, right, Brady?
Yes, a little bonus episode.
Yeah, we got a little bonus episode, and we wanted to drop this one as soon as possible. In fact, we're recording it today, and we'll get it out today, and that's because we've got a deadline coming up in the state of Nevada. So we've got a couple of biologists from NDOW that were nice enough to jump on with us. We got Cody McKee and Cody Schroeder that are going to jump on with us here in a second. And I'll give those guys a full chance to kind of introduce themselves and give us some background. We wanted to talk to those guys basically just about permit numbers, about wildlife management and hunting in the state of Nevada. We thought it'd be a good opportunity to kind of clue our audience in, or at least educate people a little bit more on the opportunities that are available to folks in Nevada. Before we get going with those guys, we wanted to hit you with a promo code. You guys can use the promo code podcast. That's just PODCAST. Pretty simple. You can sign up for a GOHUNT Insider account. If you do so, we're going to give you $50 back to the GOHUNT Gear Shop. You can use that towards the purchase of any gear that you want in the shop. Also, right now through the month of May, any new user that signs up with the promo code podcast is going to get entered for a chance to win a $500 gift card to the gear shop. So it's a great opportunity. I've looked at the number of insiders that sign up every month with the promo code podcast. And if you guys are looking to sign up, you got a great chance to win an extra $500 in the shop. So now's a great time to sign up. And if you do it quick, you can still get your application in for the state of Nevada. We've got until May 8th, which is tomorrow at 11 p.m. That's Pacific time. So get yourself an insider membership, sign up for an account, do your research, and apply in Nevada and any other state that's still coming up. So with that, let's jump in. We'll introduce our guests. We got Cody McKee and Cody Schroeder. How you guys doing today?
Good. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Thank you for the invite.
Yeah, we appreciate you jumping on short notice. If you guys could give us, we'll start with Cody McKee. It's convenient that you guys are both named Cody, same spelling and everything. But Cody McKee, if you could give us a little background on where you guys are stationed, what do you do, how long you've been with NDOW, and kind of your area of expertise, if you would.
Yeah. So again, Cody McKee. I started at NDOW back in 2012. So I think I've been here about 12 years. Began in our habitat program, working on wildlife water developments down in southern Nevada. Took position at our Reno headquarters and game division, initially working in data and analytics, and then that position transformed into where I'm at now. So right now I have statewide elk and moose management responsibilities, which for the most part right now, both of those species are doing pretty well. I think we're hitting a lot of marks as far as people's expectations on especially where elk is at. And then I think the moose hunt this year is going to be pretty exciting, but I have a background in ungulate ecology. I've been in this field for almost 20 years, including a 3-year stint with a master's degree studying mule deer in Southern California. So been working in the big game field for quite a while as a scientist, and then also hunting big game since I was a little guy almost 30 years ago.
Gotcha. Where are you from originally?
So this is going to be funny because it's going to provide a bit of more connections between Cody Schroeder and I, but I grew up in Northeast Oregon. It's a little community called Embler, nestled in the Blue Mountains. It's about 10 minutes north of La Grande, which is kind of the biggest town in that part of the state, definitely in Northeast Oregon.
Gotcha.
Thanks, guys.
Where'd you go to school? Just curious.
So I also went to school at Embler High School, which again is there, Grand Ronde Valley, beautiful area, beautiful place to grow up. There's actually a lot of people in our field that either as biologists or working with nonprofits, and some of the hunting organizations grew up in that part of the world. It's pretty crazy once you start connecting dots. You go to meetings, start meeting folks, and you realize the connection that that Pacific Northwest area has.
Yeah. Where'd you do your undergrad and then your graduate school?
So I did my undergraduate work at the University of Idaho in Moscow. And that I finished up there in 2006. And then spent a couple years working for Idaho Fish and Game in the Selway Bitterroot region, working in their ungulate research program. And then from there took a master's project at the University of Nevada, Reno, working under Kelly Stewart. And again, we were studying desert deer ecology down in Southern California. And that's kind of where the connection between the work that I was doing for my master's and then what I ended up starting with here at NDOW came into play, because I was studying the supplemental provisioning of water sources on that desert deer landscape, and taking a look at several aspects of both their demography and how they're using the landscape with respect to that, the availability of free water.
Gotcha. You've seen a variety of habitats then, when it comes to mule deer.
Definitely have. I've worked all across the west coast here, California, Idaho, Washington, Oregon, and now Nevada. But certainly I did a lot of work on mule deer for a while. Cody Schroeder is definitely the state expert now. But I have certainly can provide input from time to time, as Cody's probably all too familiar with.
Gotcha. We'll get into moose. I'm curious. I think probably everybody's a little bit curious. I thought it was cool. You guys put your big game regulations out. You got a moose on the front, which is unique for Nevada this year. But we'll get into that. I understand you guys maybe have a couple of resident permits, but we'll touch on that. We'll give Cody Schroeder a chance to kind of introduce himself.
Yeah. Cody Schroeder. I'm a staff specialist with the Department of Wildlife. And my sort of area of specialty is mule deer and antelope. So I kind of manage the statewide programs for those two species. Started with the department in 2011, working as a temp, as a lot of us do, a conservation aide. I was working in the mule deer program at the time. And then I actually started some graduate work at the University of Nevada, Reno, a little before that. And then this position opened up. So in 2013, I actually got that job, the job I have now, staff specialist for mule deer. It was focused on mule deer. And now I kind of took on, we had some shuffling of responsibilities 3 or 4 years ago. So took on antelope then. Yeah, and then in terms of, where Cody mentioned, I grew up in a very small town near Imbler, Oregon, a town called Union. So same county. Also went to University of Idaho for undergraduate degree there. Worked for Idaho Fish and Game for a few years. Worked for Colorado Department of Wildlife. Worked for California Fish and Wildlife. Got a master's in Idaho State at Pocatello, focused on foraging ecology of bighorn sheep for that project, and just worked on a variety of other research projects: mule deer, black bear, forest carnivores, even elk. At one time when I worked in Idaho, I was catching elk calves on the Locksaw. So yeah, been focused on mule deer really since about 2013.
Gotcha. So you guys are both from small town. I'm from a small town. My background's in biology. You ever heard my biologist joke?
I have not.
No. So how do you tell the difference between an extrovert and an introvert biologist? So an extrovert biologist looks at your shoes when he's talking to you. So I don't know if that fits you guys. I think it's funny, but a lot of people that it seems like Brady's the same way, a little bit introverted, a little bit small town. It just seems like those are the kind of folks that get drawn into biology. So
I kind of feel like the odd one out right now, though. You guys all have like big game biology backgrounds, and I have a fisheries background. So
got it.
I'm the odd one here in this group.
Yeah. So I think go ahead.
I was just going to say, looking kind of big picture from an ecosystem standpoint, I think a lot of what we learn about fishery science or even big game science, there's elements that are fairly well transferable. Maybe not the specific water system, but just kind of thinking about how humans change the environment, how we're all having an impact on fisheries, and it's the same with our wildlife.
Gotcha.
Very well put.
I thought it'd be good to tackle this maybe kind of species by species, and is how it relates to Nevada and hunting. And I think probably the big one, I understand you guys just went through your commission meetings, you approved your final permit numbers. And probably the big one in the room, I would say, would be mule deer. I know Brady's a huge mule deer guy. So Brady, are you all right if we jump into mule deer?
Oh yeah, I'm excited to hear about the status and everything about mule deer in Nevada right now, because near and dear to my heart, like a lot of people.
Yeah. So maybe you guys could give us a rundown on kind of what is the status of mule deer in the state of Nevada, how you guys look at management of mule deer, and maybe even a little bit into how you approach mule deer hunting as an aspect of management. And I want to talk buck to doe ratios and populations, but maybe if you could give us kind of a statewide rundown on status of mule deer in Nevada.
Yeah, I can tackle that. I think generally speaking, our populations are way down. I mean, they're probably the lowest they've been by our accord. They're definitely lowest statewide they've been since at least the mid 70s. Again, that's kind of more generally speaking across the state. We do have some herds that they're pretty much stable to slightly increasing, but yeah, we're down. Our most recent estimate was 68,000 again this year, which is right about where we were last year. I think when I started the position, we were estimating around 120,000 deer in the state. So, just since 2013, we're down, almost half. Now that's based on our models and kind of just a sum of all our individual herds put together. No confidence intervals on that. We can talk about that if we really want to get in the weeds, but generally speaking, they're down. Our tags are way down. Lowest harvest tag numbers we've had last year. This year we were recommending a slight increase. Actually a significant increase. But as you mentioned, the commission meeting, we didn't get all the ones we were recommending. So we're actually net, I think, down tags this year as well of what just got approved. A slight amount from last year.
So you said maybe lowest population since the 70s. Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. We've, our models have changed over time. We pretty much, we know we had a peak in the mid 80s, just looking at our harvest data. We were definitely harvesting way more deer, just like a lot of Western states. We saw that big kind of boom in the 80s. Now we're, well below that for sure.
Gotcha. How does Nevada approach? You said modeling. Do you guys do any surveying as far as like aerial surveys?
Yeah, we do. We do aerial surveys. We do several types. Postseason surveys. After the hunting seasons are over. Generally, those are in November to December to look at the fawn production for the year, but also to kind of look at our buck to doe ratios, our observed ratios after the hunting seasons are over. That factors into our modeling process. And then we also do spring surveys. We don't always fly the same units, in the fall and the spring, just because it does cost a lot of money, and it's just the capacity we have to do it. We couldn't. So we kind of alternate those around. Spring surveys give us a good index of our recruitment for the year. So we're looking at that to try to project how many animals are going to be recruited into the population that year.
Gotcha.
In terms of models, we have a very basic spreadsheet model. It's just more of like an accounting type model that tries to project in. We take out our harvest for the past year, bucks and does when we had doe hunts, juniors. Also, we had juniors were allowed to harvest does for a while, but we eliminated that. So we're buck only now across the state. And then we put the recruitment values in there and project it to the next year. And then you mentioned buck to doe ratios. That's one of our big drivers of, what we're managing for is buck to doe ratios on our sort of our bigger herds. Some of our smaller, more isolated ones we don't survey. We just use harvest data. We don't necessarily try to manage for a certain ratio. We just look at hunt success.
What do you think some of the limiting factors we're dealing with? Populations are as low as they have been.
Yeah, so last year, by far, probably the biggest limiting factor was just the winter conditions, especially in the east part of the state. We did have, like a lot of places, an above average winter, snow depths, cold temperatures that prolonged well into the spring, and that we know we lost a lot of deer in our some of our bigger herds in that winter. But I would say, leading up to that, a lot of factors, limiting factors. For me personally, habitat in general is the most limiting. So that can be anything from the actual vegetation on the ground, like the shrubs that are out there, which we've had a lot of impacts from fires, invasive grasses, drought conditions. We were coming out of a pretty big drought cycle, so just that's affecting the quality of forage that's out there, and like the forward production in the spring, which could be a really important driver of mule deer nutrition. So those are all limiting, and then you've got other factors: predation, fences, development, all these different things that can contribute. Together.
What sort of invasive grasses mainly are we dealing with here in Nevada?
So primarily cheatgrass. And so that affects things in a variety of ways. It'll creep into the understory and outcompete other important like forbs, especially. But then probably the biggest thing for us is just when you do have a big fire and it burns a lot of sagebrush and mountain brush communities. It just basically cheatgrass takes over, and that's all that's there. And it's a monoculture. It eliminates everything, shrubs and forbs, and then it just takes a long time to recover those. So that's the primary one. But there are other, invasive species that come into tansy mustard and other noxious weeds like Medusa head and things like that.
Do you said you have areas that are stable or slightly increasing? Are those areas that are more higher elevation? Like, can you pick and choose between those? Like, is there some delineating factor between those units and then areas that are not doing well?
I don't know if I can pick one factor, but it tends to be where we get good moisture. Kind of these herds that are at a more of a low state equilibrium, I guess if you want to say, they're not as affected by the harsher winter conditions. So, like for instance, Central Nevada is doing, some of those herds are doing pretty well. We don't have nearly the densities as we do like in the east part of the state, but we don't get quite as severe of winter conditions. And a lot of those areas in Central Nevada haven't been as impacted as by like fires and things like that. So the habitat's pretty good and intact. And we get these big moisture years. The bummer about the 2023 winter was we did lose a lot of deer, but we actually had quite a bit of moisture leading up to that as well, like rain. And then of course the conditions, removing those drought conditions, just helped tremendously with forage. So we're seeing that across the state.
Yeah. Do you feel like because I mean, if I drive through Nevada, I mean, I see a lot of sagebrush, right? And I know deer eat sagebrush, see a lot of bitter brush. It seems to me like as you drive through that state, you look at it, you're like, man, there's a lot of mule deer, habitat. Do you feel like you are limited in terms of like summer range versus winter range? Or is there anything that we can do as far as like what is Nevada doing as far as habitat wise to try to preserve that or conserve it or improve it?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're actually doing some modeling work with some of our university collaborators on that exact question. This idea of what's more limiting. It looks like, and it kind of depends on the context you put it into, right? So it looks like, though, we are much more limited summer range wise than we are winter range, just because we have a lot more lower elevation pinyon juniper, I mean, it's not necessarily high quality winter range because we do have a lot of pinyon juniper encroachment as well on the shrub component, but just the lower elevation and the shrub component there, I think in terms of total acreage, I think we're probably more summer range limited, but it can highly vary by area, and some of the management or the practices that have gone on in the past. You asked about habitat work. We definitely do as much as we can to try to improve habitat. Most of ours is, I would say probably been focused on fire restoration, trying to, recover some of those past wildfires. We'll plant native seed mixes, even non-native seed mixes in some cases where we can, to provide some kind of cover and forage for ungulates, not just mule deer. But we're also doing like a lot of pinyon juniper thinning in places out in the east in Elko County, White Pine County. That's definitely helped and benefited a variety of species.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious. It's kind of a maybe an elephant in the room, if you will. But I wondered if you'd speak a little bit to like feral horses, and impact to mule deer. I would assume there's probably some impact to elk and other native wildlife, but I was curious as to the impact and kind of the direction of horses.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take that on too, Cody. And it's definitely a problem. I mean, it's we're way over AML on horse numbers. It's really frustrating for us biologists and many of our sportsmen because they see so many. And
do we know how many?
I don't have the number off the top of my head for Nevada, but I think it's well over, I want to say 50,000.
Yeah. So the last report I had included one of our articles. It looks like over 60,000 just in Nevada in 2022. That's horses and burros. Yeah,
and we have seen a little bit of progress on that. They've been BLM So one thing to get out there in Nevada, the state of Nevada, Department of Wildlife, unfortunately, we don't have any management authority over horses. They're federally managed, so it's the Bureau of Land Management. They have been making some strides on doing some pretty big gathers in key herds. So they're trying to, as much as they can, to reduce the horse population. We think it has impacts on wildlife. You can just kind of see visually the impacts a lot of times, especially around riparian areas and water sources and things like that. And we're collaborating with partners, kind of looking at more research into this dietary overlap, space use, all kinds of competitive interactions. And we think they're impacting the populations. How much it has in the total grand scheme of things, that can vary because the horse distribution isn't, the same across the landscape. They tend to be concentrated in certain areas and around water sources and things. So it's back to the mule deer. It's definitely kind of a variety of factors. And horses certainly we think is one of them.
Yeah. Because I got the little graphic here again. I just want to explain something to people who don't read articles or don't read all these reports, the stuff that I found before. But it says right here, in Nevada, there's almost 3 times, 285% as many horses and burros in Nevada than all native ungulates equivalents in 2022. To me, that's pretty alarming that we have a very big problem. And I know everyone's hands are tied when it comes to those feral horses and burros, but that's pretty alarming. Over 3 times as many than native ungulate populations in the state of Nevada.
Well, and you guys were speaking to all of the various limiting factors for mule deer here in Nevada. And I think given Nevada's arid landscape and how it responds to changes in climatic conditions, going from drought to a wet cycle to extreme winter, and then you throw horses on top of that, you have a lot more mouths to feed. You have direct competition on the landscape. You have competition for critical water sources during certain times of the year. It all really starts to add up. And especially for Nevada, I think mule deer here are probably dealing with many more constraints than some of our counterparts do, where you don't see the density of horses on the landscape. It's not as arid. You're getting more predictable weather patterns on an annual basis, especially when it comes to like rain or snowfall. You know, again, there's just no quick fix. It's just so variable here. And then even within local areas, the issues that we're dealing with might be different from one county to the next.
Right. I think like if you look at wildlife management, you look at, you know, we've talked about all the different bottlenecks, whether it's, and there's a lot of those things that are out of our control. Like you can't control Mother Nature and what she gives you. You know, she might give you a winter that's really rough and it's hard on all native, you know, all wildlife populations. She might give you drought, which is also super hard on wildlife populations. You know, the invasive weeds, I mean, those are hard to control, super expensive. There's all these different factors that contribute to, you know, survivability of mule deer and elk and native wildlife. But to me, like when I look at it, I'm like, here's one thing that it seems like we could do it. We could solve it. Like we've got all these mouths on the landscape, you know, it just seems to me as you look at it, like that is one means where we could have impact pretty quickly. And I mean, I don't know what the answer is exactly, other than to say I understand it's federally managed. It just seems like maybe, you know, maybe as sportsmen we need to have a louder voice. It seems like if you look at, you know, all the issues that face wildlife and hunting across the West, you know, the squeaky wheel a lot of times seems to get the grease. So to me, as a sportsman, it just seems like maybe we just need a louder voice.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly it would help tremendously to get more support, because I would say there's a very loud voice out there as well that represents the other side. There's a real strong advocacy across the nation. It's not just in Nevada.
Yep.
And you know, Congress is really probably in funding. It's a very complex issue. You say it seems like a simple solution, but the overall, when you include social dynamics and politics, it's actually a very complex problem to solve.
Yeah.
I think I mean, it's sports, speaking as a sportsman, we have to learn how to communicate with both the people in the middle as well as those on the far side of the aisle, because as you guys are probably well aware, if you come at this topic aggressively and we have to find ways to persuade people that aren't that haven't made up their minds on horses. And I don't know if we're actually really effectively doing that. And I think that speaks to a lot of different topics affecting the future of hunting here. But horses, definitely, if we can make headway, there's potential real rapid benefits to the removal of the numbers here in the state.
Yeah. Yeah. And I should clarify, I'm not saying that the topic itself is simplistic, because there's I'm fully aware of, you know, all the implications and all the parties involved. From a solution side of it, if you could get to that point, solution wise, it seems like we could, you know, make some change and make some impact. So that's just one topic. I think, you know, a lot of it is so complex, it's hard to work through. But to me, you look at that, like if we could just manage those horses within a reasonable population, it's not like that we need to remove them completely from the landscape, although I personally wouldn't be opposed to it, but that's just me. I just think that if we could manage within parameters that, you know, are beneficial for all species, I think it would be a good thing. And I think I'm just speaking mainly from a podcast host today. I would love to see more public involvement, more sportsmen, you know, pushing, hey, let's manage for a more healthy ecosystem as a whole, and just let's get that back within check.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you, Trail, and I would just say the voice. We really need voices and letters to, you know, senators and congressmen and legislators and things like that. I mean, you can blast it on social media and podcasts, but you're kind of preaching to the choir if you're just yelling at your own groups. So you got to think strategically, and if we could have some, like I said, some more louder voices with Congress, I think that would help.
Instead of filming my elk hunt last year, Trail, we should have just filmed all the feral horses everywhere on the entire elk hunt I saw constantly every single day between the giant mountain range I was hunting. My gosh, they were just everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, I really do think in the context of this horse discussion, what is being missed and what's not being talked about is how horses are affecting wildlife on the landscape. So I know, Brady, you're maybe kind of joking because I'm sure you got some great footage of your elk hunt, but at the same time, I think that people really need to see what those interactions look like, how horses are impacting the landscape, and how that may be playing out with our native wildlife.
Yep. Oh, we're gonna get to my elk hunt here in a little bit because I have a lot of thanks to give because it was the best experience I've probably ever had in my life.
There is one cool. I'll just interject quickly. There's a really cool documentary that some of us were involved in called "Horse Rich and Dirt Poor." You can look it up on YouTube. It has some of our biologists talking about this issue, and it's not just ungulates. We have a fisheries biologist on there. We have a habitat biologist on there who've seen this issue, and so it affects all wildlife and habitat. And it's actually a really well done documentary and sort of endorsed by some of the science groups like the Wildlife Society. Cody and I are members of that group, and so
you said it was called Horse Rich and Dirt Poor.
Horse Rich and Dirt Poor.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just wrote that down to add it to our little show notes.
Yeah. I don't want to get bogged down into horse discussion. I would like to commend you guys for the work that you do, given the constraints. It feels to me, at least, looking from the outside in, that you guys it's kind of been forced down your throats a little bit. I mean, it is what it is. Federally managed species. They're like, hey, you've got horses, deal with it. And I understand that you guys, it's problematic for you guys to manage within that, but I think you've done a good job above and beyond, the issues that you're faced with. So I hope that didn't sound, I'm not putting it on you guys. I fully wanted to acknowledge that. I'm not saying that you guys are doing a poor job as far as that goes. I understand it's a complex issue. I just want more people to get involved and hopefully we can do something. I wanted, Brady, okay, if we jump over, I wanted to talk like, how do you guys manage hunting in the state of Nevada, and how do you feel about the opportunity that you provide people? How do you look at that? Do you look at mule deer hunting as more of an opportunity? Do you look as more of like a trophy quality experience when somebody gets a permit? And I wanted to talk about buck to doe ratios. How do you pick do you manage the whole state, all the units for the same buck to doe ratio? Do you have select units that you manage for a higher buck to doe ratio? And, how do you pick those and how are you trying to, provide a hunting experience for somebody based on those?
Yeah, those are good questions. Kind of a lot to unwind there.
Yeah.
Hey, Cody, I think you're on mute.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. So overall, I would say we are definitely trying to manage for a quality experience. If you look at like our season structure, we have a variety of different season dates. We have early, late type seasons, kind of tailored to more different experience that you might see. We're limited entry. We don't have any over-the-counter hunts, and we haven't for a very long time. So we definitely limit that hunting opportunity in that way. In terms of, variety, we do manage, at least based on our guidelines, we're trying to manage for some areas that, will provide what we consider kind of a balance between hunting opportunity and quality. So that was for a long time based on about $30 per 100 does, for instance, for most of our, what we call our sort of standard units. And then we do have some that we are, intentionally managing for a little bit higher buck to doe ratio. And then we look at other things like hunt success and like the 4-point or better in the harvest, things like that are kind of tell you a little bit more information about the age structure. And so, yeah, we have most of our units are standard. As I mentioned, we have like 8 alternative units. But the buck to doe ratio, I mean, it's not a perfect thing. because you can have a lot of bucks on the landscape, for instance, or maybe skewed more heavy on the bucks, and not have what everybody's looking for, which is generally more tends to be the trophy side of things, and that is more driven by nutrition and age, just past herd performance. How much recruitment you've had, 2, 3, 4 years prior to that. So we do try to manage it towards those directives, that balance, at least in terms of mule deer. And so when populations are doing well, we've had a lot of tags in our big hunt units. So we've provided quite a bit of opportunity. Now that our populations are depressed, unfortunately, we have really reduced that opportunity. And so, like I said, we're just more limiting on our quotas.
Mm-hmm.
And it does seem like there's a growing kind of louder voice out there for more sort of trophy quality. And you hear a lot this last weekend, if you go through and listen to that YouTube commission meeting, we talked a lot about age and quality. And so I don't know how we get there. Unfortunately, Mother Nature drives a lot of this. Mm-hmm. I think it will kind of correct itself or recover just based on like the conditions itself. If we allowed enough time, I do see our populations increasing, and there's room for growth. And by limiting licenses, we're definitely going to limit harvest, and we're going to, by nature, have more older age class bucks in a few years. And mm-hmm. So people should hopefully expect to see that come up.
So how do you do much looking? I was curious. So like Utah, I've got a background in Utah. I worked for the DWR, and then I'm on this mule deer committee, and we do we're doing a lot of talking right now about buck to doe ratios, and our general season units we've kind of managed between anywhere from like 15 to 17 or 18 to 21 bucks per 100 does, and we look at those as more of a a general season type of hunt where they're relatively easy to draw for a resident, maybe 2 to 5 years depending on the individual unit. I was curious though, like 30, you guys, you kind of, your base, it sounds like, is 30 to 100. I was curious, is that a socially driven number because that's the type of experience that hunters want to see? Is it more of a biological driver in that you think that 30 to 100 is kind of a more productive herd? I was just curious on your thoughts on that number 30 and kind of why that's the base.
Yeah, that's a good question. I try to dig into that myself, and I don't know how we actually arrived at that number. To be honest, it was there before I started. But my understanding is that was kind of generally thought of as like I said earlier, a balance between quality and opportunity. So mm-hmm. It seemed to be like, at the time anyway, when they developed those, a good number. It's not really based on biological limitations, from my understanding. I mean, there's certainly buck to doe ratios that are way over that. If you look across the West, most of them are well under that. As you mentioned, Utah's, mm-hmm. 15 to 18, I believe, on general hunts. And I think there may be some more emerging science on this, on actual biological. I was talking to some of my colleagues in Utah actually about this just a week ago. There is some literature out there that suggests running high buck to doe ratios can impact like fawn recruitment. Mm-hmm. So I do think there is an upper limit to it. But where the 30 came from, it's my understanding that was just a good balance between, we want to have, enough bucks out there that people are happy, but also providing some of that, people want to go hunting it every couple of years at least too. So you got to have a hunting opportunity to provide that. So that's where that number, in my opinion, or in my digging, kind of came from. And then managing on the higher end, like I said, in our alternative units, that's just more about limiting the harvest, trying to, skew a little bit to the ratios to have more older age class out there available for mm-hmm. harvest. And people tend to be more willing to wait, years and years and years and build up points to draw those alternative units. So if you're a guy that just wants to shoot a buck every year, every other year, you got this option. If you're willing to wait 8 to 10 years, or even more now, then you look at those alternative units
Yeah.
for deer.
People, yeah, people want to, they generally want to hunt deer every year or every other year if they can. They want to see a lot of bucks and they want to hunt big bucks, which is, it's kind of a hard thing to manage for. It's like having your cake and eating it too. So it's a hard thing to manage for.
Yeah.
I was curious, as far as Nevada residents and the feedback, what kind of feedback do you hear from the residents of Nevada? Like, what do they want in a mule deer hunt? Do you hear much about things like point creep? Are they coming to commission meetings and saying, hey, it just takes too much to draw a tag, we want more opportunity? Or are they generally saying we're okay with waiting 5, 6, 10 years to draw a tag if we have the opportunity at something special?
Yeah. Again, good question. I don't have a great answer for it. The truth is, we really haven't surveyed our hunters very well, in my opinion. We really haven't asked them that question, at least recently. We have tried to get at it a couple times in the past. We've done some surveys, some public attitude surveys. When I very first started in 2013, I believe, is the last one that we had. It kind of boiled down to the exact thing you hit on. Everybody wanted to hunt every year, and they wanted 30-inch bucks, and they wanted this impossible thing to manage for. I don't think we ever really posed like the trade-off question of, are you willing to wait X amount of years to go hunting? So I don't really know what the true public attitude is. That's my most honest answer. I can say that what we do here at the commission meeting tends to be the people who are definitely more willing to wait. They don't seem to be as worried about opportunity. We've had topics ranging from waiting periods for mule deer to point class restrictions and all these other things that would limit opportunity. I have not heard from a lot of people saying, I just want to go hunting every year, at least that show up at our commission meetings and our county advisory board meetings, which are another public process that we have.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I do feel at times I was talking to Dax from Utah about this, kind of speaking on behalf of a silent majority, but I don't know that it is a majority. Honestly, maybe it's just me out there trying to advocate for people to go hunting. I don't really know the answer to it.
Yeah, I think,
but taking more bonus points to draw tags for all of our species these days.
We kind of speculate a lot on what is it that the people that aren't showing up to our commission meetings are thinking. And I think part of it is, it's the hunting expectations are shifting more towards higher quality experiences, older age class animals, but kind of lost in all of this. And I think, again, it goes down to the speculation part, is like, there are people that just like to go hunt for meat. They're okay when they shoot a yearling buck or a 2-year-old buck. There's perhaps less pressure on that. And I think, like, Cody and I have talked a lot about when you work at our check stations, for instance, a lot of times when we're collecting CWD samples from hunters after their hunt, strategic locations throughout the state, a lot of times the deer that are coming through are younger bucks. And, we aren't specifically pulling those individuals as they come through, but by and large, a lot of those hunters are just really excited about the chance to get outside, spend time with their friends and family. They had a chance to harvest a deer. Maybe they saw some other ones that didn't work out. And again, it does feel like that section of at least Nevadans tend to be underrepresented through our process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would just add, I have looked into this too in our data, and especially our bigger units where we tend to throw out more tags, at least historically. The bulk of the harvest for mule deer is 1.5 to 2.5-year-old bucks, or at least if you use point class as a metric for that, it's 1 and 2 points. It can be as high as 50% of the harvest.
That's where I'd be so interested to know were those people going for that type of hunt, just like a meat hunt, and they were fine with it, or were they struggling towards the end of the hunt, like, oh, I bird points, I'm just going to shoot something to come home successful? Like, what was their expectation going through that hunt? And just learning about, as you can see those numbers every year, the number of points per antler side in the data book,
Yep.
and look at it. But what was their expectation of the hunt? Were they happy with that they shot, fork and horn? And if so, that's totally fine. But what were people holding out for? Or, what was their hunt all about? Important information, I think, to understand.
Yeah, we certainly want to try to delve more into it, I think, in the future, to do a little bit more intensive surveys and things like that. We probably haven't done a great job at that as the department, engaging people's true
we did add a question, a hunter satisfaction question, to our survey questionnaire a few years ago. And it's definitely not probably detailed enough to really get at some of those questions, Brady. I think it does kind of hint at some trends over time. And I think for all of our species, for the most part, since we've collected it trends downward year over year.
Yeah. It's I think it's commendable that you guys have a mandatory. I know that I paid the $50 late fee yesterday because I missed my window for my harvest survey where it was for free. So I paid my $50 to do my survey and then, be able to apply in the draw. I still haven't applied yet. I'm a procrastinator, I guess, when it comes to applying, but I did notice that you guys asked the question, kind of satisfaction of the hunt. It's good that I think you guys have clear directive, and this is an interesting thing when you talk about opportunity versus quality, because there's definitely people that love a quality hunt. I love a quality hunt. If I draw a tag, I want a quality experience. I'm one of those guys. I also want more opportunity to hunt, but I understand that you can't necessarily have both, right? Yeah. So I get it, but there's definitely people that are, a loud voice for quality. And I would say, generally speaking, from what I know of Nevada, you guys have kind of taken a quality experience perspective. And, I think it's good if that's the direction that you want to take. And then, your residents of Nevada, if they're kind of happy with that directive and kind of the direction it goes, I think it's totally fine. And I would say I just did, 20 minutes before we jumped on this call, did a little video for our website that'll go out via social media. And kind of my plug for Nevada has always been, it's pretty tough to draw a tag as a non-resident. Like if I look at Nevada, I have a little pit in my stomach every single year where I'm like, yeah, is it worth it? Because the odds aren't necessarily great for me as a non-resident. But my plug for Nevada is if you draw a tag, any tag, you have the potential for a really quality experience if you're willing to get after it.
Yeah, and I would just add too, like we've talked a lot about mule deer, but if you look at the variety of opportunities across the species we offer, a lot of us that hunt in Nevada, and maybe I'm speaking for myself, but we put everything on our application. Like I'm trying to get an antelope tag, I'm trying to get a cow elk tag, I'm trying to get a bull tag if I can, bighorn sheep. And we actually do have, if you look at it, a lot of different types of opportunity, even for non-residents. For instance, this year, we increased antelope tags, and we intentionally put more tags out into primitive weapons. So there's actually a lot of opportunity, even for non-residents, to pick up like an archery antelope tag, a muzzleloader antelope tag. I know those are harder hunts. They tend to have a lower success rate, but the opportunity is there, and that is something that we did intentionally try to change, or at least our commission did this past year with one of our policies across all species, is to try to put more tags into the primitive weapon classes, albeit at the expense of people who are only wanting to hunt with a rifle or any legal weapon, as we call it. So there are opportunities out there, and cow elk is a great hunting experience. We even have doe antelope hunts because we have some herds that are doing really, really well that we're actually looking to do some translocations for this coming year to kind of augment some of our other herds. So bighorn sheep have been kind of down, but still, when you look at us compared to our Western counterparts, we still have a lot more opportunity than anybody else for bighorn sheep tags.
Yeah. So since I'm going to ask one more question, just specific to mule deer, we'll jump over. We've had you guys for almost 50 minutes. We haven't even really touched elk or any of the others. I apologize. Uh, it since I'm a procrastinator, I haven't put my application in. I'm not going to ask for like individual units by any means, but is there areas of the state that you think I might want to look at?
For deer or
Yeah, for deer.
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, for like top end quality Lincoln County, any area around Panaca, Pioche, area 22, 23, and 24, those have been consistently producing big bucks, even in the lowest of our low times. I mean, there were some tremendous bucks killed out of area 24 last year, like record book, all time records coming out of there. So I think those hit pretty well. The middle part of the state, I still think, is underrated. The Toyabe range in area 17 has a lot of deer, relatively speaking, for that area, higher buck to doe ratios. And those are quality units, even the areas around it, area 15, which is just to the north, and area 14, like the Diamond Mountains. I think all those have really good potential. And I know for a fact there's potential for 180-inch bucks in all those areas. There may not be a lot of them, but there's definitely some out there.
Gotcha.
And then as you go west, it gets really limited in terms of tag numbers. But I still think northwest Nevada has some pretty good potential too, even around Reno. But it's extremely hard to draw a tag with our quotas where we are.
As far as your herd health this year, I mean, looking at Utah, I assume Nevada. I haven't looked at like updated moisture maps or drought maps, but I would say given the winter that we had in 22, 23 coming out of that, and then this year seems like a decent moisture year, not record breaking by any means, but as far as that goes, I mean, we should see decent antler growth, decent production this year.
Yeah, for sure. I think all of our species, this is going to be true. Horn, antelope horns, elk, antlers, deer antlers. I think it's a tremendous year for growth, for antler growth. Absolutely.
Gotcha. So we should get our applications in.
I mean, yes, for sure.
I haven't done mine yet either.
An elk tag would be phenomenal this year. A mule deer tag would be phenomenal too. There's very few people out there you're going to be hunting with, and for all those species, relatively speaking, and just potential for a lot of bucks and bulls to blow up this year, I guess, if they're hit that critical age threshold.
Gotcha. Brady, you got any other mule deer burning questions that you had?
No, I could go all day talking about mule deer and asking more, but I'd really want to talk about elk and moose as well. Like we have a lot of stuff to talk about. We could just do one whole podcast just on mule deer if we wanted to, but I'm game to jump over. We got a lot of goodies to talk about. I don't know. Maybe we should talk about moose first, since that's like the new thing.
Yeah,
the new cool thing that we got here, especially like you said, it's on the cover of the 2024.
Yeah, happy to chat about it. It's definitely generated a whole lot of attention in the last few months.
Give us the lowdown on numbers. How many moose do you guys have in Nevada?
Yeah, so right now we're modeling just over 105 adults, or over 100 adults. As Cody pointed out, we don't have confidence intervals on our estimates. So we can't speak to the uncertainty around those numbers. But what I would say is, our population models are entirely driven by recruitment. So how many calves do we have on the landscape? Same with fawns. And generally speaking, over the last 4 or 5 years, with what we've been able to model from our moose herd, I think that we've been severely underestimating calf production. And so what that's led to is probably an underestimated population, which I think is a good thing. It's low abundance. We certainly don't want to overestimate, especially in a case where we're introducing a hunt. It's very much an opportunity for us to kind of step into a hunt here. We'll be able to collect some really important biological information about our moose. For instance, age structure is one element that you really can't collect without the actual removal of individuals. And so we'll be able to, one, provide this hunting opportunity, and two, when we check in those moose, we'll collect incisor teeth and send those off for aging and at least get a sense of how old the bulls are here in the state. There's certainly a wide variety of ages based on the pictures that we're getting from a lot of hunters. And so I don't think that anybody that draws a tag, if provided they put the time and effort into it, should be able to find older age class bulls. We have very little information about body condition, disease potential. So there's a lot of information that just through hunting moose is going to actually help us better manage them going forward.
Mm-hmm. My understanding is you guys will have a couple of permits, a couple of resident.
Yeah, that's
permits,
correct.
right?
So we're issuing 2 resident tags this year, which breaks out to just a little under 2% of the overall population. When you look across all of our species, that's by far the lowest proportion of harvest from the adults within those herds. So again, it's a very conservative step forward. I think down the line, as we learn more about our moose population, it seems to be growing really rapidly, about 20% annually. I think there's going to be potential for more, and we may be at a place in a few years where there's even non-resident opportunities. But again, right now it's kind of leaning into a hunt, and certainly not wanting to kind of overdo it this first year.
Are these?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Trent. Are these moose are they historically native to Nevada, and then as this recent population is all like stuff trickling down from Idaho?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. We get that. We get that question quite a bit. And honestly, I don't think I can really speak to the historical presence of moose. When we go back through and look at newspaper articles and some of the ethnographic records that, from Native American campsites, we don't see moose records in those locations.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not aware of any moose pictographs. And so it appears that what we're experiencing right now is contemporary and natural expansion. It's not something where there were likely moose at the time of European settlement and that they were extirpated through hunter harvest. It just seems like we're kind of right on the front end of that southern range expansion. And they're seeing that in Utah and somewhat in Colorado as well.
I think that's super cool that we're at the forefront right now of moose populations in the state of Nevada. That's just super cool to me.
Yeah, and it really feeds into the kind of the uniqueness of what we're experiencing, because a lot of times, I think this is the first ungulate species where we're offering a new hunt in 30 to 40 years. And even then, a lot of those other species were herds that were reestablished through active trap and transplanting efforts. So active on the ground management. And then with respect to our moose population, we've been pretty well hands off. For whatever reason, about 10 years ago, something changed on the landscape. I think we probably just reached some minimum effective population. We just had the right number of adults to where we really started to see sightings grow. That we were getting reported from the public. We started encountering more moose on our surveys. And then over time, it's just increased year over year.
This is, again, social media. So I'm just going to throw this out there first. This is just what I've read on social media. Sure. I'm not sure if you guys read these same sort of crazy things on social media.
Sure.
But I think I saw something on NDOW social once. It was of course there's moose in Nevada. All the moose are leaving Idaho because they're getting chased down by all the wolves. And it's all the wolves' fault. That's why we have moose in Nevada. So I always just laugh every time I see anything regarding wolves.
Yeah.
And big game animals and why they're moving around. So
we definitely,
according to experts in social media, it's because of the wolves that we have moose in Nevada.
I mean, we could just rely on the social media experts to do our jobs for us. I'm sure in some minds things would be better off. We just shake our heads when we see that. The southern range expansion of moose is really well documented. If you look back over like glacial history. They were the last species to cross the Bering Land Bridge. They're the last species to start moving south. And so, again, we're just kind of at the forefront of that changing distribution. And then kind of speaking to wolves specifically, there wasn't any, or at least as far as I'm aware, there are no established wolf packs in Idaho, the South Hills, where initially I think the moose were probably moving in from. So it's very much just more than likely there were some young individuals. They dispersed from their core home range and found some good stuff here in Nevada and seem to be doing pretty well.
What is the home range of a moose?
The size? It's actually so I can't speak to the numbers. I don't have the number right off the top of my head, but interestingly enough, it's pretty small here, and we don't actually see a whole lot of seasonal movements either. And they're tall critters. They can stand some pretty deep snow depths. And probably last winter, I imagine in some places the snow got deep enough they started moving to lower elevations. But as we look at the distribution of our monitor moose right now, they don't seem to be moving around a whole lot, even in the dead of winter.
Are your hunts for residents for the 2 tags, are those going to be like unit based? Or are they statewide? How does that work?
So we initially we're going to offer all of Elko County. We started looking at kind of where the core distribution of moose is. It's the Jarbidge Mountains, west of the Jarbidge River, and then south into the Snake Mountains. And then we're starting to see an uptick in observations in the Ruby Mountains. So we whittled down Elko County to specific units where we felt like someone that had that tag is probably going to have their best chance of finding a moose. And then we also are, at least for this year, because it's a new hunt, it's a very limited hunt and pretty novel opportunity. We have a really liberal season. So I think it opens September 1st and goes all the way to November 30th. So there's going to be good overlap with some of the early season distribution. You could scout early and probably still find moose in the areas they're going to be. And then once hunting season kicks up, it also in October, that also coincides with the rut. And that's when a lot of the bulls are moving around a lot more frequently. And also where I think that's why we get so many observations from hunters that time of year is there's a lot of deer hunters in the field and they see bulls moving around. So you'll be able to be out there during that time as well.
Gotcha. Are you going to allocate tags the exact same way that you do your other tag system? So bonus point system, random draw?
Yeah. So it is very much a random draw this year. So you will accumulate a bonus point if you don't draw one of those 2 coveted tags this year. But because it's the very first year that we're offering this hunt, everybody's going into the draw with 0 points. So every single application gets a single number. It's as random as it's going to get. And it goes to whoever gets the 2 lowest numbers for a moose application. It's a once in a lifetime hunt. And I'm not sure we're actually offering that for any of our other big game species right now. But the vision is that the opportunity to hunt moose here is going to be so limited going forward, even when we do reach some max threshold, that it's unlikely we're going to be able to offer enough tags for those bonus points to really, really play out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd be really interested after the draw happens to see how many applicants we have for moose. Like, it's going to be pretty cool to see how many people are excited about it. I know a lot of people are talking about it right now, so it's probably going to be a pretty hefty number.
Yeah, and I definitely have been interviewed a few times, underestimated those numbers, and have put my foot in my mouth a couple times on how I spoke to that. It's going to be a great opportunity for folks. We've been doing a lot of on the ground work to understand our moose population. And I'm really happy that we've got to a point where we feel comfortable and confident offering hunts where we're going to have a sustainable harvest, and then still allow for our population to grow.
Mm-hmm. Do you have some good bulls?
We do. I am by no means a good judge of aging of moose on the hoof. But from some of the pictures I've seen, they'll definitely make a run at some of the quality shares units in other states.
Wow.
Huh. That's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, that's neat. Do you want to talk about elk, Brady? Your favorite?
My favorite. I mean, that's why I wanted to get into some elk discussion because, like I said earlier, like I was like, it's no joke now. I was hiding it earlier, but I drew a very, elk tag in Nevada is coveted, but drew a phenomenal elk unit. I'm not going to publicly say it right now, but I can tell you guys off air the unit I had. We can talk more about it, but it was the best elk hunt I've ever had in my life because of I think everything that you guys do in Nevada to make it that way. Like literally one morning, I saw 29 bulls by 9 a.m. from one glassing spot. 29 bulls. I'm not just talking about raghorns. I'm talking about quality bulls. It's like whatever you guys are doing with elk, it's working. Keep doing it.
It's not working for me. I can't draw a tag.
Yeah, and well, again, you talked about the primitive weapon earlier. I decided to do the primitive weapon thing. Like I'm never going to draw rifle tags. I'm a rifle guy, and I love muzzleloader, so I did the muzzleloader thing. Open sight muzzleloader with an elk is an absolute phenomenal time. So yeah, just what are like populations in Nevada? Let's just dive into some stuff, and I had other questions later. We can talk random things about my hunt too, but yeah. Great hunt because of what you guys did. So thank you for that.
Yeah, well, you guys hit on sort of the like yin and yang of elk hunting here. Is one, when you do get a tag, it's great. On the other hand, it can take some time to draw.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, in order to provide that kind of opportunity, we also have to limit the number of tags that we can give out. And it puts us, I know that there's people out there that are probably listening that have a lot of bonus points and are frustrated that they haven't drawn. And I just say, keep on applying. Because when you do get a tag, it's going to be a great experience.
It took me 11 years to draw it. And I feel like I still got very lucky.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you had a great tag. And like, those muzzleloader hunts, for instance, we keep track of like hunter success year over year. This most recent year, rifle and muzzleloader have pretty much identical success now. And then for the first time ever, archery had near identical success to both rifle and muzzleloader. There tends to be a bit of a gap between archery and those two other weapon classes. I can't explain it. I have a few theories, and I'll probably get into it. But from an overall elk population, I mean, it's strong. I think there's a misconception out there that there's not enough elk, or that through harvest we've somehow driven our numbers down, and we should have let the herds grow. The reality is we can't do that. And there's really good reason for that. Those are our elk management subplans. So each one of those subplans had a oversight committee come together made up of different organizations, private landowners, representatives from different industry, where we got together and talked about elk, identified limiting factors on the landscape, and then came to a consensus on acceptable elk numbers on the landscape. And so we talk a lot about population objectives and how that drives tag allocation. And so right now, with the 14,000 elk that we have, we're pretty well capped out at the number of elk that the state can sustain while maintaining compliance with all of those subplans across the landscape. And so I think we make the most that we can with what's a pretty limited resource.
Do you manage your hunts by bull to cow ratios?
So we don't. And there we have one really good reason. We do all of our elk surveys in the wintertime. And at that point, the cow and bull groups tend to separate, especially older bulls will go off in isolation. It's really hard to find a representative bull ratio during those winter surveys. A lot of times we may see 20 to 30 bulls per 100 cows on survey. But to sustain the level of harvest that we endure, a lot of times those bull ratios, the true bull ratios, are probably in the neighborhood of 70 to 80 bulls per 100 cows. So there's a big variation there in what we actually see to what's truly in the on the landscape. So we actually use an antler length metric, which is essentially a surrogate for aging. our friends across the border in Utah, they're really good at collecting teeth, and they use an actual age range to guide their bull quotas. We found that collecting teeth here is, given the resource investment that it takes, mainly from staff time to collect teeth, process teeth, get them sent off, and then analyze. It's a little bit more than our agency can endure on an annual basis. But through some deep dives into past tooth collection efforts where we're getting those known ages, and then Trail, you mentioned our harvest surveys, which are mandatory. So in general, we get nearly 100% reporting rates on our hunts. Every bull hunter is required to report their main beam length. And what we found is that there's a really strong correlation between main beam length and age. And at about the age of 7.5 to 8 is where you see that main beam sort of plateau. The number's around 50 inches. There's a few different ways that we can go about using that information to guide our objectives. So one, we could use an average main beam length, because there's a pretty good correlation between average length and what a known age is. So for instance, I was looking at it the other day, like a bull that has a 42-inch main beam is on average likely to be about 4.5 years old.
So what about my bull, 53 inch beam?
So my guess is he's going to be 8 or older. The challenge is that the length actually plateaus around 8 years old, and it flatlines. And then once bulls get older, it starts to regress. What we've elected to do, and then have been guided by our wildlife commission, and it seems to be working pretty well, is we shoot for a target composition of 50-inch bulls in the harvest. So Brady, you hit one. You hit one of those metrics for us. And essentially what that does is, on one hand, it ensures that we're going to have older age class bulls in the population. And then on the other hand, there's people every year when we look through our harvest data that are more than happy to harvest younger bulls, smaller bulls. But at least it ensures that there's a proportion of older age class bulls within the herd. And that kind of plays into some of those quality, because I think on average, it really puts us even at a higher average age than most other states.
Yeah, because I was going to ask a question earlier, but I think you've just been answering it the whole entire time. Like, what is the secret sauce when it comes to Nevada elk in terms of quality and quantity of elk, of bulls? But I don't know if you can speak to more on that, but you just, like I said, explained a lot of that stuff right there. But
yeah,
it just seemed to me like, I don't want to say like to people like, oh, maybe Nevada should increase their tags, because what I'm about to say, like, I struggled on my hunt because everywhere I went, I found bulls. So it's just like I was obviously trying to target an upper age class bull, because I know I'm never going to probably touch this tag again in my life. With a 7-year wait period, age of my life, by the time I ever get this tag again, point creep's going to be pretty crazy. So I was targeting a big bull. And throughout the whole summer scouting, I think I put 9 total days of summer scouting in before my hunt. Like, knew the unit by heart. Everywhere I went, I would find bulls, and quality bulls. I was just determining that where do I want to actually start my hunt, because there was so many elk everywhere. It was the funnest time I've ever had. And so I think Nevada's, like I said, there's a secret sauce to it, what you guys are doing. So just keep doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I do appreciate that. We should probably like post that on our social media or something here with the last 24 hours to go. But we strive to provide that quality hunting experience, because now you're in your 7-year waiting period. So it's going to be a long time before you can even start applying to hunt here. There is a little bit of a balancing act. In order to maintain that high average age within our bulls, that also means we have to run a really high bull ratio. And that can have population level implications. We've talked a little bit with mule deer, how having high buck to doe ratios might impact mule deer herds. But also, I think another real effect given the year is antler breakage. So, there's some of our central Nevada units where during certain years, and it seems like it's more strongly correlated to dry, droughty years, we tend to get more reports of antler breakage. And I think people complain, but at the same time, in order to have that experience, you have to have a lot of bulls out there. And so again, it's a balancing act. And then I always find myself, I know what we have. I know what Nevada can provide to a hunter. And I want to maximize that as best as we can while still being able to provide the quality hunt experience that we seem to be in right now. I think right now we're kind of in the golden age, it feels like.
Mm-hmm. Especially with all the wet moisture we've been getting and everything like that. It's like,
yeah,
you get an elk tag now. It's pretty good. That's why I was very thankful I got one last year.
Yeah, you had it in a great year. And I honestly, I think when we looked at some of our antler data from last season's hunt, I do think that there are some impacts from winter, especially the further north that you went. It does seem to have played out in the antler length measurements that we were getting from hunters and the average main beam length, especially as you go north of like Highway 50. And, but when you do look at sort of the segment of bulls that are going to be up and coming right now, or potentially older bulls that maybe have had some limited antler growth early season last year, they're kind of primed to hit that 50-inch segment this upcoming season. I think it's going to be I expect it's going to be a really good year.
Does Nevada, have you guys explored, because I know Utah, they just went through this, the elk kind of reformed or redid their plan a couple of years, might have been a year ago or 2 years ago. They essentially kind of looked through the data. They lowered the age class objectives on a bunch of their units. They kind of diversified where they put permits. They created some new hunts. So now they've got an October hunt, rifle hunt. They've also created some late archery hunts, which I've gone through and I looked at the data, and they didn't kill that many bulls statewide. But is Nevada, do you guys feel like you're being pressured or asked to provide more opportunity for people to draw an elk tag? And are you looking at alternative hunts? Are you looking at late December archery hunts or anything like that as a means to allocate more permits but still retain a harvest success that's within kind of your parameter?
Yeah, that's a great question. For one, we're currently in the process of revising our statewide elk plan. It's been a little bit delayed because of various external factors. And I think that's a good stepping stone towards maybe taking a look at some of those alternative season structures, maybe getting creative with the timing of when we offer certain hunts like late season archery. Right now, we're really not getting asked to do much of anything different than what we're currently doing. I don't know if, mule deer have really been in the spotlight recently. And I think that definitely has taken up a lot of the bandwidth of our constituents in trying to kind of, help recover mule deer herds in whatever way that might look. But yeah, to be honest, we're not hearing a lot about diversifying what we offer. I think the only real uprising might be some of those population objectives. I'm hearing more and more people and organizations talking about revisiting what those population objectives look like, and to talk about those objectives a little bit. I mean, we're not that far removed from a time when they were very controversial. Elk in Nevada was very controversial. There were, backlot, almost down to fist fight types of conversations that were happening when those subplans were being created. And we're finally kind of getting to a time where elk seem to be more accepted here in the state. Definitely by sportsmen, but also by our landowners and some of our industry partners. And I think that's what we really needed for us to kind of revisit those population objectives and potentially consider raising those down the line.
Yeah. It's a balancing act of all that, right? Landowners and agriculture and depredation and everything that else that goes into it. I was curious, do you maybe kind of the same question, like if I'm looking at Nevada. I get 5 choices in Nevada when I apply for elk. They're going to consider all 5 of my choices when I apply. They're going to, pull my application. They're going to roll through each one of my choices, trying to allocate me a permit. And if all those permits have been allocated, then they're going to, move to the next applicant. And kind of my strategy has always been swing for the fences, apply for a really good hunt as my first choice, and kind of stagger that down towards my 5th choice, which is best odds, which is a non-resident. In double digits is still super low. I just looked at it. I'm still less than 3% basically for all hunts, which is okay. I'm okay with that. I would love to draw a tag in Nevada. So maybe if you guys could come up with some late archery tags or something to help my odds, but I'm okay with that under the guise that if I draw that tag, I know I'm going to have a phenomenal experience. But are there areas of the state you think are more productive for big bulls? Like if I really wanted to swing for the fences, I mean, what areas of the state am I looking at? And then, kind of taper it down to what are my better odds? Maybe I'm gonna have to hunt really hard to find a similar type of bull.
Yeah. I mean, at 3% trail, you got a chance. As you guys know,
got a chance.
That's all
I drew a deer tag last year. My odds were 0.065, I think. So there's hope when your application's in. There's a chance.
And as you guys know, I mean, there's that randomized aspect of our draw. So even with those probabilities, I mean, the unexpected happens every year. We do have quality across the state. I do think that there's certain areas where you're going to be working harder than others. A lot of times, I mean, the go-to is White Pine County and Lincoln County, just like mule deer, for whatever reason, whether it's genetics, whether it's weather patterns, the bulls in that part of the state just seem to be bigger. And that's despite us having similar bull to cow ratios elsewhere. And I think there's a lot to be said about how summer monsoonal weather plays into those demographics. Like for mule deer and for elk, they do tend to get more rain in the late summer when these animals are finishing, and that may sort of bolster the range conditions and kind of help give them that little extra boost. From there there's some good areas in Elko County south of I-80 that I think people could and should be looking at. And then, from an opportunity standpoint, it always seems like Elko County north of I-80 are the units that people are overlooking and probably are using those as anchors on their application. We had the same change to elk quota allocation this year, where we're putting more emphasis on archery and muzzleloader, and trying to increase opportunity through those weapon classes. The downside of that is because success rates plays into how we allocate tags, and we had such high success across all 3 weapon classes. It didn't quite play out how I think folks were expecting it to. But we did still see a bump in archery, muzzleloader not quite as much, and then a slight decline in our rifle tags. One thing that I think is really interesting and might be something for folks to consider. I did a really rough analysis of bull movements during the rut to get a sense of when the peak of rut might be. We don't currently have any transmitters deployed in our cows that would tell us when the peak of parturition might be. So that is when they're dropping cows, to kind of back calculate when the peak of the rut might be. But there's definitely a noticeable difference in the peak of the rut between northern and southern Nevada. So in southern Nevada, it seems to be peaking 5 to 6 days earlier. I think it's around September 16th, 17th. And then as we go north, closer to the Idaho border, it seems like it's peaking later. And when we look at our archery success and kind of what the realized results look like, success up north on our archery hunts always seems to be lower than what we're seeing down south. And so I think our archery hunts down south seem to be lining up a little bit better with the rut than what's happening up north. And I think that's a conversation we're going to have down the line. That was something that we did just recently and didn't have a chance to adapt our seasons this year.
Mm-hmm. I was curious. I was looking through your archery elk hunts. I mean, there's a few of them that start like the 16th of August, which is pretty early. That runs to the end of August, basically 2 weeks, the last 2 weeks of August. And then you've got some that are most of them I would say are typically like September 1st through the 16th or their 20th thereabouts. If somebody draws an archery tag, say they draw an August 16th through the August 31st, are they primarily hunting water, spot and stock? Okay. And then as far as rut goes, the 16th of September, do you feel like somebody still has an opportunity to hunt rut?
Yep. I think especially those southern units, the rut should be picking up towards the tail end of their season. I think that's August 24th to September 16th. They should be starting to see activity. I mean, granted, it's all going to be variable annually. What's the weather like? Where are the cows at? Generally, that it seems to be fairly synchronous from year to year. But I think, if it's really hot and dry, I think that activity is probably less pronounced than when we get a nice cool pattern to start the month of September. And I mean, as you guys know, it could be 95 degrees in September and we could be 60 degrees with snow on the mountaintops.
Mm-hmm.
I had a quick question. The name kind of speaks for itself, but can you walk me through the antler depredation elk hunts we got in Nevada?
Yeah.
Like, what's the purpose of those?
Yeah, so there's a couple purposes for those hunts. One being through that elk planning process. There's certain parts of the state that were essentially identified as elk de-emphasis areas. So there are places where through that collaborative process, those locations were identified as places that elk were not wanted. And so that would be for Ruby Mountains, 101 to 103, and then like roughly the Diamonds northeast of Eureka, area 14. Those hunts are consistently on the application or available to apply for year over year. And the tags tend to be fairly liberal. I think we also have one in 251, which is just on the north end of the NTTR. And there's another small zone where elk are unwanted. So we offer tags there, usually liberal hunts and seasons, just to put pressure on the elk and try and keep numbers down. The other depredation hunts that we offer tend to be focused around agricultural areas where we have elk that are causing a lot of problems on fields. And for one reason or another, everybody that applies in Nevada gets charged a $5 elk damage fee for every elk application. That money goes towards fence construction, hazing techniques, equipment required for that, or sometimes we do direct payments to landowners to compensate for losses. But in some of these depredation zones, either the fencing is unfeasible, it would cost too much. There's usually a lot of factors at play where we can't provide that. So we put these depredation hunts in place to put pressure on elk and try and keep them out of those unwanted areas. 2 years ago, we offered, we kind of had to change one of our depredation hunts because it was in 115, centered around, I think it's the Spring Valley Ranches on the west side of the Snake Range. And there were some great bulls out there. And it ended up creating some problems with folks that were in the field. And so we instituted what is a antler point restriction on those depredation bull hunts so that we're still providing pressure on bulls, but there's not a perception of competition in the field for older age class bulls that might be living within those areas. Because the bulls tend to live in groups, if you can put pressure on one bull that may be younger or smaller, it tends to push them out, at least temporarily.
Yep. So rather than having someone draw that and then get a trophy bull out of a depredation tag,
yes,
too. So.
That was and a lot of times, like, new decisions have unanticipated consequences, and that was definitely one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys, how do you manage your bull to cow ratios? Because like if you're only basically hunting, you're allocating permits, based on kind of this objective of like 50-inch beam, you're kind of using that as your parameter. How do you manage bull to cow ratios and still provide people a quality experience? Are you doing any kind of spike hunting, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely offer spike hunts. That helps us at least taper down some of those bull ratios. We can offer limited opportunity where, hunters are putting pressure on the less desirable age segment of our bull herds. They've been functioning pretty well. One thing that we saw when we had to have really elevated cow harvest here in the state is those bull ratios did balloon. And we did during those times, which was roughly 2013 to 2017, we had to offer a lot more bull tags just to maintain that ratio at what is an acceptable level. Again, it's really hard for us to actually monitor in the field. So we have techniques where we can model what we expect the bull to cow ratio to be, and again, to kind of achieve the harvest levels that we're seeing. We feel like that's we have some pretty good checks and balances to know where it's at. But it is something that's a constant consideration because again, you start to get too high, and not only do you have potential issues with cows and calves, but there's also a lot of rut dynamics happening. I think 2 years ago, it might have been a historic year for us getting reports of bulls that died during rut sparring, which is, and again, is just another unanticipated consequence of those high bull ratios, us trying to provide the experience that we do. We don't love to hear about that, but it does happen.
Yeah. Are those spike permits, are they a separate draw, or are they part of the same antlered elk draw?
Yeah, so that's a separate draw, and it accumulates bonus points just like our antlered or our bull tags. And then I think 2 or 3 years ago, the department started using a draw order. There was a time where everything was being done completely at random, and so you did stand a chance of drawing like a cow or a spike tag before you drew a bull tag. Now there is a draw order, so I think I know for a fact bulls are drawn before cows, and I think the draw order is bulls, depredation bull, cow, spike, and then depredation cow. So if you put in for all of those hunts, and each one is a separate application, you can at least be assured that probably for the most desirable segment of elk hunting here is getting drawn first. So you wouldn't lose out on a potential to go bull hunting.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Brady, you got other questions? I got one more, maybe two more, and then we'll unless you got more, but we can cut them. No, you guys have been very generous with your time. You've been with us for an hour and a half.
Yeah, you can hit them up trail. It'll be good.
Yeah. Kind of, I guess my last question would be two questions. One being, like, how are you feeling about the state of Nevada wildlife going forward as it pertains to, weather dynamics? I mean, you're feeling good about things, or we're kind of, still worried about it? Just kind of the future of hunting in Nevada. And then secondly, like make a case for a non-resident to apply in Nevada. Should they apply in Nevada? Is it worth it? And if so, why do you think so?
So I think I'll step in first. I'm cautiously optimistic about the future of wildlife here, especially my program for elk and moose. And I think a lot of wildlife species in here in the state, whether or not we hunt them, that may or may not be sagebrush obligates. One thing that I think that leads me to caution, be a little bit more caution, or take a little more caution here as we go forward. At our commission meeting last Friday, Mark Freeze, our habitat chief, put up a figure that shows drought cycles in Nevada over the last 2 or 3 decades. And we all know that droughts are cyclical, and it's only a matter of time before we get into the next one. That figure right now, we're very much in between droughts. And so I think the thing that leads kind of I'm trying to proceed with caution and not get too optimistic is that it's not a matter of if we go back into the drought cycle, it's when. And I hope that we're able to recover our populations, especially mule deer, to a suitable level where we can see a bump in numbers, but also the density of deer on the landscape are going to be able to kind of weather that drought cycle. If I was a non-resident, I think Brady sold it. I don't know if I really need to speak too much to it, but I can say Nevada is very much an investment. I don't think that you can apply here first year. It's probably unrealistic to think that you're going to get a tag the first year, but it can happen. It happens every year when you look through our draw data. But when you do draw, I can guarantee that you're going to have the hunt of a lifetime, especially for elk. Having an elk tag myself, I've not been able to replicate that experience in any other state.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I guess I'll just throw my 2 cents in. I think Cody hit it right on the head on the weather. That's tough. 1 to 2 years out. Short term looks good from my perspective, but long term it's hard to say. And is it worth it? I think it is personally, because you never know what the future is going to be, and it could be great in the future. And if you're going to put in for one species, you might as well put in for several species. And we do have those opportunities that I talked about, some of the primitive weapons and things like that. It doesn't cost that much more to do another application. And so even to build up points to, look at maybe 3 to 4 years from now, I think deer hunting could be phenomenal with our buck age class in 4 years, coming off of a low point in tag numbers and projected recruitment. I think it could be phenomenal deer hunting, even this year, but 4 to 5 years from now, I think it could be really good. So for me, it's worth it.
That's a great case. You won me over. You said you nailed it, which is fantastic. That's awesome.
I do have one more thing, Trail, before we close.
Yeah,
How did you keep going?
I was just going to note that if you do want to apply, you don't have to buy the hunting license. Like you can opt into that only if you're successful in the draw. And I know people that apply that way just because they don't have the $155 to put into it, but you opt into it only if you're successful in the draw. In those cases, you wouldn't get a bonus point, so your chances wouldn't increase. But that is an option, and I know people that have done it, and I know people that have drawn tags that way as well.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay,
What's up, Brady? What else?
My final thing, like in terms of ways we can help in Nevada, like me, general person, everyone else out there, what was your guys' suggestions about ways that we can help, make wildlife populations better? Is it strictly money donations? We just need to donate a ton of money. Is it time, trying to go out there and work on some projects with you guys? Do I have to do a rain dance every single night before I go to bed? Like, what's the best ways that we can help contribute to, bolster the populations here in Nevada across the board?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned volunteerism. That's a great way to help out if you've got the time. I mean, we do a lot in water developments. We look for volunteers for that constantly. We collect sagebrush seeds. I mean, we're always looking for just manpower, labor type stuff. That's a great way. You can donate financially. Obviously, people are applying; they're donating quite a bit. But even like we have a resource enhancement stamp, we have a youth fishing program that actually gives you a hunting license for youth. We're just handing out. Kids don't have to buy a hunting license. That kind of promotes youth. You can throw on like $10 on your application to donate to that to give kids hunting licenses, which I think is pretty cool. That's just a few ways you can help out in Nevada.
I would echo that, and I would also add, we talked a lot about horses, and there's other, broad, high level issues that we deal with here and other agencies deal with throughout the West. But I think, we need people to be engaged in those issues. I think Cody talked about the echo chamber, and when we're talking to ourselves about the issue, it doesn't really help the issue. But there's certainly ways for people to get involved and make sure that their voice gets heard so that we can help deal with some of these more pressing needs that have long-term implications for the future wildlife here.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, I agree.
I want to double back on one thing you talked about. Like, yeah, right when you're going through your Nevada checkout of your hunting license, your application, it does say right at the end, the Resource Enhancement Fund, you have a chance to donate there, and then the Nevada Youth License Fund, you have a chance to donate right there. So it's quick and easy while you're applying. If you want to donate, you can just donate right there, and anything helps.
There's the Dream Tag program too. I'd be remiss if I didn't promote that. That can be outside of our application period, and all that money that goes into that. Of course, you have a chance to draw some really premium tags, but we use that money to, put in for projects, to do habitat programs, research, vegetation monitoring. I mean, it's all over the board. So that's another way.
Yeah, maybe give a quick, just like a very brief rundown. You've got Silver State tags, and then you've got Dream tags. Can you give listeners just kind of an idea what the difference is between those two, and can they apply for both?
You want to tackle that, McKee?
Yeah. So the Silver State tag is very much like a governor's tag hunting opportunity. Okay. You're not limited by weapon class, where you're hunting. The season opens on August 1st, and I think at least for most of the species, and runs until the end of December. So you have the same hunting experience as somebody that buys one of our auction tags.
And that's a Dream tag?
That would be the Silver State tag.
Silver State tag. Can you buy multiple entries, or is that
only one entry per person? So it's kind of like our moose hunt. You've got the same chances as anybody else in the draw.
Gotcha.
The Partnership and Wildlife tag, or the PIW, is similar to the Dream tag in how it's actually like how you can hunt on the landscape. You have to hunt with whatever open weapon class and open season is occurring at the time. So, if there's a muzzleloader bull hunt in the Ely area from September 16th to October 5th, I don't think that's the date. I'm throwing the wrong date out there, but you could hunt during that time, and you could hunt in any of those hunt areas throughout the state, throughout the course of the season. And that's for both the PIW and the Dream tag. I think PIW tags are only offered for resident and non-resident for mule deer and antelope. Is that correct, Cody?
Yeah, for those. Yeah, they are for sure for those.
And then PIW, and then for resident hunters, they have the opportunity at PIW tags for all the species except for select bighorn. And then the Dream tag is similar, except you buy raffle tickets through GOHUNT, I believe.
Yeah, we actually do the draw odds calculation portion of it.
Yeah. And so it's the same way, but again, all of that money goes back into conservation here in the state.
I just made a bunch of balloons fly out somehow.
That's how excited Brady is about it. I will say we conduct. I think we handle that draw. I will say there's a bunch of parameters for anybody that might be listening. Brady and I are ineligible.
Yeah, anyone that works at GOHUNT cannot apply for Nevada Dream tags. They'll throw it out there. Yeah, we do the draw results portion of it. Yes. just throwing that out there so that we don't get any haters. Because I don't deal with it because I'm not even eligible.
I think too, when we talk about like these different hunting opportunities and revenue generated, we're a really big agency. All of the money that's generated is going back into operations and getting good work done on the ground. I don't know of any other state wildlife agency that gets done more with less. I've put my foot in my mouth on this topic before. I don't want to do that. But I can say that the money that's being put into Nevada is being put to really good use, and there's no frivolous spending going on.
Yeah, you're not driving a new Raptor or Ford Raptor.
Not today. No.
Nah, I'm kidding. I'm an advocate for state agencies. I think you guys have I think you do a phenomenal job. I mean, I think you, in a lot of ways, you work a job that is pretty it seems thankless, and a lot of the times, I don't think you guys get near the accolades that you should get, and it's purely, I know for a fact, you guys are in it for the right reasons. You're in it because you love wildlife, you love hunting, and you're genuinely interested in conserving and preserving hunting and the species. So it's commendable. I appreciate you guys jumping on with us today. We took an hour and 45 minutes. I'm very thankful for the time that you've given us today.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having us. It was a good time.
Yep.
I would
Good
echo
luck
all
in the
that. It was
project,
a really good podcast. Appreciate you guys taking time to do it, and we're going to do our best right now to scramble and get this one live as quick as we can for the deadline here coming up May 8th, 11 p.m. Pacific time.
Good luck in the draw, guys.
Apply.
Hey, same to you guys.
Yeah, likewise.
Bye.
See you. Thanks.